Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-5855. As of right now, this SCP is very hard to contain. The Foundation doesn't have enough information on it to keep it totally under wraps, so instead they've been keeping an eye out for anyone potentially interacting with an instance and then immediately descending upon them to apply amnestics. It's effective for now, but we'll see how it works in the long run. 5855 is a collective designation for a particularly cute set of anomalous fruits. These fruits will have at least one human organ or appendage, like an apple with legs, or an orange with some eyeballs growing in it, or maybe a banana with a couple fingers spreading from the sides. If you were to see one of these in an animated film, or maybe as part of a YouTube video, you probably wouldn't think much of it. But coming across a walking watermelon in your day-to-day might mess you up for a little while, yeah? These fruits are indeed sentient and ambulatory and have been seen hopping, dragging, and rolling themselves around near folks with artistic or creative backgrounds. If the tortured artist in question has a history of severe sleep deprivation, high fever, hallucinogenic drug use, or psychosis, the possibility of seeing these little foods running around is even higher. Usually, these creators just assume that they're seeing things when they encounter pineapples with ears and start to assume that they're just being inspired. So they go about creating plenty of art featuring whatever produce they continuously see. Over time, folks at the Foundation realized that the anomaly causing these fruits to appear was quite the picky art critic. It wanted to be depicted in certain ways by certain artists, and the amount of time in between manifestations correlated with specific criteria applied to the previous artistic endeavor. In order to ensure that people around the world were more or less okay with images of fruits with human body parts to keep instances of 5855 unremarkable, they came up with a plan known as Operation TV Dinner. You gotta keep that veil unbroken, right? This meant creating an episodic TV show featuring these fruits with human organs, allowing for new manifestations to be added whenever they appeared. In order to maintain plot coherence, the head researcher was allowed to appear on camera too. So let's go over this one more time. They had to make an episodic show about fruit with human features who may or may not interact with actual humans from time to time. My fight or flight just activated. Here's a picture of what that all might look like. Oh no. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-5978. These Sarkic cults never seem to run out of crazy stuff to do, eh? Like, until this day, I had never heard of the term carnomancy, but here we are. Meat magic. What a world we live in. And that's just the beginning of this extremely odd anomaly. 5978 used to be 2 non-anomalous humans, but now appears to be a strange fusion of both of these people. These folks used to be active members in a neo-Sarkic cult, but were kicked out and forbidden from interacting with other members, probably because they went absolutely nuts. They moved in together and continued to practice carnomancy on their own time. Neighbors would complain of their constant noise-making and fighting, which eventually culminated in the duo fusing together and being discovered by the Foundation. The apartment was a mess and had a bunch of anomalous items stored within, like a gold ring that was always heated at 930 degrees Celsius, and a photograph of the two of them that often changed to give them red skin and horns. When taken into Foundation custody, the duo was 1. It kind of looked like somebody given a piggyback, except the rider had no legs and was totally fused to their shoulders. Yikes. The main lower body has no internal organs, is calcium deficient, and speaks only in an indecipherable language. The upper body has dual sets of human organs, which often manifest on the outside and then get fed to the lower body before recycling into the original upper area. The two heads often communicate in ways that make them appear to be arguing, and even post-fusion they can't get along. Nowadays, this SCP is considered neutralized. Nobody can really explain what happened though. One day, a bunch of humanoid figures manifested from the upper body and ate all of the skin connecting the two together. The lower body soon died from these wounds, but the upper body stayed alive for a little while. After consuming to their heart's content, the manifestations excreted a viscous fluid and then demanifested. Once they disappeared, the remaining anomaly finally succumbed to its injuries and died. Nobody at the Foundation has seen anything like it since. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-5351. At first, this one appears to be just an average woman. Hailing from a vaguely Slavic location, she looks and acts like a human a lot of the time. However, she's got plenty of anomalous traits that folks should probably be aware of. The most noticeable of the bunch is her tendency to appear right beside anyone who reproduces exact phrases that 5351 has themselves said. When she pops up beside them, she'll go right ahead and kill that person, as well as anyone else who is nearby and heard the statement. Copy her? Catch these hands. While carrying out this murderous task, 5351 has been observed to gain supernatural strength, demonstrating the capacity to exert stuff way past human limits. This usually means that she mauls the copycat to death with her bare hands. Once everyone involved is dead, she'll become a whole lot more friendly and cooperate with anyone who has questions. The longer she spends in an area, the more likely that that area is to grow a bunch of plant life very rapidly, even if the location is inhospitable to flora. She was originally found near a remote Russian village where the local elders would imprison anyone who had interacted with her to prevent their potential repeating of her words. If she were to pop up next to somebody who accidentally repeated something years down the line, it would be a big deal whenever it happened. So eventually the Foundation took her into holding and had some researchers investigate the anomaly. Unfortunately, she became obsessed with one of the folks on staff, which turned into quite the issue. She would demand that she spend time with the researcher and would in turn often let it slide when people stole her words. No more maulings. But this basically meant that the poor guy was doomed to spend his life in servitude to this woman of the woods to prevent further deaths. Oh boy. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-5726. They really had to cryogenically freeze the whole anomaly to keep it under control for this one. Jeez. If you were ever a fan of Sailor Moon, you might find it relatable. Apparently, a real-life manifestation of an anime hero known as Sparkling Magic Girl Darling Pink, aka Ichigo Nakamura, popped up and caused a whole lot of trouble. It outwardly appears human, or at least human-esque, but it lacks a lot of important human features. You know, big stuff like organs and a nervous system. It's just layers of weird fleshy material all the way down. If you cut into it, you'll just find more and it'll heal up right away, although it does feel pain. So before being frozen alive to prevent any more chaos, SCP-5726 acted like a typical anime protagonist, doing their best to balance their normal life with fighting bad guys. The thing is, we don't live in an anime world. So when Sparkling Magic Girl used her heart-shaped projectiles on ne'er-do-wells, they just ended up exploding and melting human flesh. It was pretty horrific. This resulted in a whole lot of mixed feelings from 5726, as in her world, whenever folks got hit by the pretty pink purifying hearts, the darkness would be purged from them and then they'd become friends. A little more to reckon with here, eh? The psychological strain turned out to be too much for the so-called protagonist, who eventually snapped and killed a few Foundation staff. And from there, things only went downhill. So for now, they keep her frozen. It's for the best. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-5659. Ah yes, a giant humanoid who lives under the sewers and grows larger when exposed to negative emotions. There's no way that could end up in disaster. Right now, folks have estimated that this creature is around 20 meters tall. However, it appears that under the right circumstances, it could grow to 100 meters and quite possibly level entire cities. Currently, it inhabits a pocket dimension and appears to be hibernating. But the Foundation doesn't want to take any risks, and as such is doing all they can to prevent it from breaking free. For a long time, this meant keeping people as far away from the area it resided in as possible. However, they learned over time that this would be quite a tricky endeavor. But get this. One day, a wicked fun event was held nearby, featuring a vehicle labeled the Love Bus. Apparently, the community spontaneously rallied, bringing all sorts of good vibes to the area. Inexplicably, this caused the monster to literally shrink down to microscopic size. Who knew? Love wins. Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-5623. Spaceships. They exist. But they didn't always exist, and before folks proved they could land stuff on the moon, a lot of people were convinced that we'd be living within the bounds of Earth's atmosphere forever. Not the craziest thing humans have assumed either, especially seeing as we pretty much have everything we need right here. You know, if we figured out how to not waste everything and make sure everyone got a piece of the pie. But hey, here's the thing. If we take SCP-5623 at face value, apparently there was an extraterrestrial spacecraft sighted by the Foundation over 50 years before humans launched anything into outer space. In 1903, Foundation researchers witnessed a sphere moving about in the space outside Earth's atmosphere. After this, it wasn't seen again. Most assumed that it was pulled in by the gravity of a red dwarf star at some point, leading to its inevitable destruction. That's just the beginning though. See, with more research and better credentials, you can find that SCP-5623 is indeed a spaceship constantly heading towards dying stars. Whenever it reaches its destination, said star will immediately vanish. With a little more investigation, the Foundation discovered that this strange object is indeed piloted by some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence. It's sapient and able to communicate, but it doesn't seem to know what it is or how long it's existed for. After delivering a bunch of communication-enabling materials to this entity, the Foundation opened up a line of communication with it. The pilot of this thing is a vacuum-born, a being that spontaneously comes into existence and acts with great purpose. It's been around for eons, collecting stars as they die, ensuring that they don't permanently go out. For this reason, it's been referred to as the Star Euthanizer. Funnily enough, Foundation researchers gave the entity a name upon request, and now it goes by Glenn. Glenn has traveled the universe since his inception, collecting dying stars, and will continue to do so until the universe ends or runs out of stars. In either case, Glenn will then enact a ZK class universe reset scenario and begin anew. It's safe to say that we won't be around when this happens, but it's sort of strange and terrifying knowing that something is out there with that capability. Although knowing that there's no malice behind Glenn's actions does provide us with a sense of comfort. He won't be resetting our universe and destroying everything we know because he hates something, it's just because he wants the stars to come back. And I suppose I would do the same as Glenn had I been brought into existence in a similar way. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-5607. What was it that the blue screen would say on arcade machines? Winners don't use drugs? Well, get this. We've got a whole new performance-enhancing drug discovered by the Foundation, produced by a little alien humanoid. 5607 is a tiny extraterrestrial creature that exists in a comatose state inside of a stasis tank of unknown origin. It lives kind of like a plant, subsisting on water, UV radiation, and carbon dioxide. After researchers removed it from the vessel in which it was found, the vessel self-destructed, resulting in the inability to complete further research. Weird, right? Well, it gets weirder. The alien creature itself isn't really the main attraction. Its urine is. That's right. This little planty person produces performance-enhancing pee. In fact, the urine is so good at enhancing performance that the Foundation began conducting tests on it and found that it causes a substantial increase in mental and physical dexterity in all those who inhale the vapors. So they took this stuff and engineered a device by which to vaporize and distribute it, and you're not gonna believe what it's called. It's the Personal Inhalant Service Stimulant, for short. A little on the nose, don't you think? Well, moving on from that interesting choice of nomenclature, the urine from SCP-5607 went on to be used by an MTF under the guise of training and testing operations. But the members of the MTF got hooked on the stuff. They saw great increases in their efficiency and effectiveness, but also found it hard to stop using the stuff. After adding mixed berry flavors to mask the acrid aromas, the MTF began overusing the PISS. And when the trial ended, they got violent. People were shot and killed in desperate attempts to acquire more of the stuff. In fact, things got so out of hand in the name of that the entire site where it was happening had to be burned to the ground to prevent further outbreak. So remember, kids, if you ever find a tiny alien man who produces performance-enhancing addictive urine, stay away. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-5881. The monsters we make for ourselves. I think this is a nice SCP to read when you're feeling overwhelmed by your own expectations. See, like all anomalies, 5881 is written right into the SCP universe and actually exists somewhere inside that imagined world. It's not just a metaphor or a representation of something, but it can also be taken as a metaphor for something else. See if you can figure out what. 5881 is a 26-year-old male named Ben. Ben subconsciously manifests 3 incorporeal humanoid creatures, each with a different set of personality traits. One appears to be a successful businessman, another is a high-ranking military officer, and the third is a professor at Cambridge University. Whenever one of these beings manifests, they work Ben to the bone. They have high expectations for him and berate him when he doesn't meet them. The businessman is constantly giving Ben lessons, expecting him to be extremely smart with his money, and pushes him to spend his free time exclusively on entrepreneurship. The Major wants Ben working out all the time and pushes him to exhaustion over and over and over. The Professor expects Ben to be reading the classics, learning new theories, and finding all sorts of time for additional scholarship. Each being wants Ben to excel in whatever he's doing, but provides him with no time to work on what the others are presenting. This has led Ben to just about losing his mind. Other people can see these incorporeal beings from time to time, but they're only concerned with talking to and lecturing Ben, poor guy. Because of the differing and widely varietous expectations of each manifestation, he can never really accomplish anything. And this lack of achievement encourages the manifestations to talk down to him and force him to work even more. He can't take a break, watch a show, or have a drink without one of the manifestations jumping down his throat, which led to truly nothing getting done. However, once contained by the Foundation, Ben found his ability to do work and achieve some sort of productivity went up. Less external expectations and the ability to function will go up. He argued with the manifestation still, but managed to find time to do what was needed, and it's sort of funny how that works. Think on what this is a metaphor for, and then don't let your manifested monsters run you ragged. Sweet. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-5965. Hayden Morris fell off a cliff and died. Hot start, right? Well, now Hayden Morris constantly falls right in front of past acquaintances. Like if someone is indoors, Hayden will fall from their ceiling, go splat right in front of them, screaming the whole way. Outdoors, Hayden instances can fall from all sorts of heights. Then there's a Hayden Morris corpse that has to be dealt with. SCP-5965 has caused a lot of trauma and distress in the lives of those it affects. One acquaintance believed that he had somehow gotten too drunk, exhumed her body, and brought it back to his apartment. Her mother saw Hayden fall into the freezer at the grocery store and believed it to be a hallucination. Possibly worst of all, a Hayden manifestation dropped in the middle of a preschool class she used to work with. All affected parties have been amnesticized, but holy smokes. They're not just dealing with the death of Hayden once, they're literally watching it happen right again in front of them. The bodies are indeed real, but Hayden's original corpse remains inside her coffin. Strange. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-5647. This SCP has a current death toll of almost 5 billion, and it's rising. It has wiped out the O5 Council and is impossible to combat. What on earth could be causing all this chaos? Ready? The linear passage of time. The linear progression is caused by observation, and at this point is unavoidable. It will come for us all, and it will end us all. What can we do about it? Well, not all that much. Foundation researchers have done their best to figure something out, but procedures meant to alter and cease the effects of 5647 have been stopped by the Ethics Council. I suppose stopping time in order to prevent the effects of time doesn't really do all that much in helping anyone existing within the bounds of time. Boy, a lot to think about there. Time as a monster. It's possible we are thinking too hard about this one. Coming in at number 5, we've got SCP-5197. Now there is a lot going on with this SCP. First up, we've got a whole bunch of strange floating spheres. More specifically, large oblate spheroid objects possessing a dark metallic appearance. Say that 5 times fast. Observers claim that these spheres are often covered in what appears to be etchings of ornate symbols. Well, that's ominous. These spheres randomly appear every 271 days, but nobody can really pin down where and also how they appear. The Foundation has tried to find a pattern, but to no avail. Once they appear, they produce large amounts of noxious, poisonous gas for about 4 hours. After they've done so, they usually disappear. However, there's a little more going on under the spherical hood. Apparently, each instance of 5197 contains some additional stuff. In each one, there is 5 instances of 5197-1, which basically are giant bones. They feel like bones, they look like bones, they have a similar structure to bones. Nobody knows what they are though. If anything punctures one of these huge cylinders though, they will explode and destabilize local space-time. These explosions result in the creation of kilometers-wide anomalous zones, which then also have to be dealt with by the Foundation. Thankfully, less than 10% of these strange objects end up exploding, but that's still more than we'd like. If you thought that giant gas-emitting spheres and dangerous explosion bones was going to be all that was notable about this SCP, you'd be wrong. Additionally, inside each instance of 5197, there are 8 other anomalies. Known as SCP-5197-2, these are large, 4-legged entities clocking in at over 5 meters tall and 6 meters long. These beasts are covered in dozens of tentacle-like muscular hydrostats, although nobody can explain the function or purpose for these appendages. In case you didn't think these creatures were freaky enough already, they also tend to emit a constant sound, which reminds those who hear it of a human woman screaming. These creatures react poorly to sudden movements and tend to be erratic and violent. However, none have survived more than 12 hours, usually due to exposure to the gas that the sphere emits. So to summarize, we've got spheres that emit dangerous gas, full of exploding cylinders that can disrupt space-time, and tentacle-covered monsters that scream and thrash about. Now what the hell could be causing all of this? Well, here's the thing. The O5 Council received a transmission on one of their secure communication networks. It appeared to be from some sort of extraplanar intelligence, one that assumed that folks on Earth were actually interested in receiving these odd packages. In fact, the thing communicating with the Council seemed to believe that we had ordered these spheres and were qualified to receive them. Maybe some other planet uses this stuff as fuel, but holy smokes, we need these cells like a hole in the head. Stop sending them. Coming in at number 4, we've got SCP-5655. Okay, stick with me on this one. It's gonna sound kind of ridiculous, I admit. And you know what? It sort of is. But what kind of anomaly isn't super ridiculous? They're all ridiculous. This one is just like a special kind, I guess. Maybe just, most of them don't take on the guise of a popular brand of processed meat. Yeah. 5655 is an empty can of spam that contains a tiny red reality-bending humanoid. Still with me? I don't blame those who decided to check out a different video, but if you're still around, you're in for a doozy. So if you find yourself in possession of this can of salty pork remains, you can give it a little shake or turn it over and a little red dude will appear. If you make a wish while the humanoid is present, it will attempt to alter reality in a way that makes that wish come true. Unfortunately, it's not the world's best reality bender, so a lot of the requests end up being only loosely fulfilled. Say you wished for an orange ball. You might receive a partially eaten tangerine from someone else's lunch. Kick it up a notch and wish for $1 million, you would probably get $1 million Liberian dollars, which when exchanged for US dollars would make you about $6,200 richer. Not a full million, but that's still nice. Let's imagine for a moment that you wished for another SCP-5655, twice the wishes. You'd be the proud owner of a brand new crude pencil crayon drawing of the little dude. Eternal happiness? Get a game of Kerplunk. Bring back the dead, a flash drive full of ska music. Balancing the Foundation's budget? Well, actually, it can't do that. See, this canned goods genie is very limited in what it can do. In order for it to grant wishes, it needs to take something from somewhere else. It's a matter of universal balance on the largest scale. It can't just bring things into existence. So if it were to do something as mind-bending and impossible to conceive of as balancing the Foundation's budget, the universe may very well collapse. Which, not really worth it, Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-5266. I like this one because it feels like my job could lead me to being part of it, 5266 is a series of anomalous YouTube videos and the phenomenon resulting from them. Each individual video is known as SCP-5266-1. A -1 video is uploaded every few weeks and is never attached to any channel or URL. The only way to find one is to see it in your recommendations, and they're usually pretty attractive videos. You're gonna want to click on them. They're all titled like ridiculous clickbait, you know the ones. Describing the events of the video in a super exaggerated way, in all caps, using buzzwords, the whole 9 yards. The video itself is a recording of a previous 5266 event set to a Village People tune. These events are classic fail videos, people falling over, getting injured, being embarrassed, etc. They're recorded by anomalously functioning recording equipment nearby, like security cameras, laptop webcams, or iPhones propped up in the same room. Although, if none of these are present, an unknown presence seems to be recording and usually goes unnoticed by the folks on camera. After the folks goof up, multiple shrunken heads begin to appear in the area, all dressed like members of the Village People, hard hats, headdresses, and all. They'll begin to sing a famous Village People song, and all the while the subject of the video starts to develop toxins in their blood. If they don't destroy all the shrunken heads in order to prevent them from singing, their toxin levels will continue to rise until they reach fatal levels. Thankfully, if the heads are indeed destroyed in a reasonable amount of time, the toxins will disappear, and in most cases, the subjects will survive. This is terrifying for sure, especially considering that can happen to anybody out of nowhere, but the clickbait titles are too good to ignore. Stuff like, idiot succumbs to neurotoxin while listening to Macho Man, click now to see, and disco gone wrong? Office worker gets poisoned. It's just pure gold. We're living at the time. The Foundation has recorded all the poems from this creature, but at this point all of its skin has been disposed of. Probably best not to take care of non-anomalous rotting flesh, eh?